Or yes. Let's see.
Speak to me. You're the only voice I want to hear. Walk with me. Show me who you are as I draw near. You're not in it, and I don't want it. Let all else fade away. Take the whole world, give me Jesus. Let all else fade away. Satisfied, you're the only one I'll ever need. Holy fire,
to Calvary, where Jesus bled and died for me. I see his wounds, his hands, his feet, Savior. His body bound and drenched in tears, they laid him down in Joseph's tomb, the entrance sealed by heavy stone. Silent. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise. Oh Lord our God. On the third, at break of dawn, the Son of Heaven rose again. Oh, tremble death, where is your sting? The angels roar for Christ the King. Yeah. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise. Oh Lord our God. Shall return in robes of white, blazing sun shall pierce the night, and I will rise
among the saints.
Let's sing that one again. Shall return in robes of white, the blazing sun shall pierce the night, and I will rise among the saints, my gaze transfixed on Jesus' face. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise. Oh Lord our God. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise. Oh Lord our God. Oh Lord our God. Oh Lord our God. Yes, sir. Great.
Good morning, everyone. Hi, my name is Danica Zink. If you haven't met me yet, I am. Oh, everyone can have a seat. Go for it. I'm Danica Zink. I'm the secretary here for the student organization side of H2O, and I'm also one of our Thursday night life group leaders. So it's fun. We're very happy to have you here. If this is your first time coming to H2O, I'm very proud of you that you made it up here to Phoenicia. This is not our normal spot. But we would really love for you to fill out one of our Connect cards. Connect card will help you get connected to someone else in the church, help you meet new people, get you to a life group, stuff like that. You can fill this out either by scanning the QR code on the screen or the one in your handout. We would love for you to fill that out. Speaking of life groups, Thursday is amazing, but so is Monday and Wednesday. Those meet at 7 p.m. in the second floor lounge here in the Union. So downstairs, there's a bunch of couches. You'll see people. But it's a great time to meet new people and get a little bit more in-depth into God's Word and studying together. Another big announcement this coming weekend is our fall retreat. And fall retreat is a great time you can meet so many people. It's not just H2O Toledo, but some of our other H2O affiliate churches. And it's just a really good time. If you are interested, 24-hour, just good fall retreat time. You can sign up on h2otoledo.org or at our greeting table. I would say meet with our greeters. It's over there. You can do that after service or just talk to someone. A lot of people here have been there before and would really love to tell you about how good of an experience it is. If this is your first time going to fall retreat, it's going to be $25. If you've gone before, it's going to be $50. Now, we never ever want finances to be an issue. So if you want to go to fall retreat, we have scholarships available to help you get there. So never think of that as an issue. Just go ahead and go through that way. Okay? On that note, H2O is very interested in knowing people's stories. And so every once in a while, we have students share a slice of life, which is just a little bit about them and maybe a little story about how God has played a role in their life. And today, we're going to have Nick Stump share his slice of life.
Hello, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Nick Stump. I'm a senior in mechanical engineering, and I'm also help lead Monday's Life Group, and I'm the president of H2O this year. So, a little bit about me. I grew up in the church, pretty much going there anytime it's open, Sunday morning, Sunday evening, Wednesdays. If it's open, I was pretty much there. My dad was an usher. Both my parents helped in the nursery. My dad helped with the Awanas, if you know what that is. So if there was church, I was there. But it never felt like it was my own faith, really. It was more of my parents. They're like, okay, you're going to church. And then it just became such a routine. I didn't have much of that relationship with God. I didn't spend much time with God on my own. It was just the time I spent with God at church. And then I came to college, and Sunday morning came around. And I was like, time to go to church Sunday morning. It wasn't really a thought. It was just, I've been doing this my whole life. So here's Sunday, time to go to church. I had gotten the H2O water bottles, best water bottles out there. So I remember before going to my first service, looking at the water bottle, like, okay, room 2584 in the Student Union. Headed there. Sat in the back by myself because I didn't know anyone, introvert. I don't want to go talk to people I don't know. Then I filled out the Connect card, and then the next day, Tom Stewart sent me a text message and invited me to Monday's Life Group. I didn't end up going that week because I felt a little sick. Tom probably thought I was just like, okay, he's saying no, he's not going to show up. But I was. Next week I came. So the following Sunday, someone else was actually giving their slice of life, and they talked about fall retreat and how good it is and how you should go, which I'm also going to talk about. But, so, I was like, okay, I still don't really want to go, but I went to the Monday Life Group that week, Monday before fall retreat, and they were decorating the t-shirts, and Tom convinced me to go. There's probably some Tom, probably some Holy Spirit, probably some I know I'm in college now, I don't know anyone, I need to make friends. But I went to fall retreat where I didn't know anyone, got in a car with two random people who I had met that Monday, and went and spent 24 hours with a whole bunch of people. And it was great. It was a good time. I met a couple of my future roommates, and then other future roommates there too. A lot of people that I see out here I met at fall retreat. Those of you who don't know what it is, it's a week or a day. It's a whole week. We changed it now. It's Friday and Saturday down in Columbus area. We have the Camp Olympics, which is us competing against, there's 3 other H2Os there, the other H2Os there, and just tug of war, marshmallow toss, human tower pyramid thing. It's fun events. We have a couple lessons from a guest speaker, and it's just a good time spending time with just the other churches in our church. So if you're thinking about going, go. Even if you don't know anyone, even if you don't want to go, go. It's worth it. So I went to that, and that's kind of what got me started in the H2O and like going to things and getting more involved. Because at fall retreat, I heard about the Well, which is something we'll be starting here in another couple of weeks, which is just our way of getting the new students involved in the H2O and learning what H2O is about. So because of fall retreat, I got into the Well, and then through the Well, I started helping with production, and then I got involved with a huddle, which is just a small discipleship group that meets up every week. And then Tom asked me to help lead Monday's life group, and I got into that. And just one thing after another, it's okay, I'm going to church because it's just what you do on Sundays. I want to go to church. This is something that's important to me. My whole life I knew it was something that should be important to me, but I don't think it was really until college that it did become important to me. So I think a lot of my spiritual growth has came in college because of this church, and it all started at fall retreat. So go to fall retreat. That's a slice of my life.
Thank you, Nick. I texted Nick last week and I said, "So are you going to fall retreat?" And he said, "Duh. Is that even a question?" And so he's speaking truthfully when he says go to fall retreat. Thank you again, and we're going to go ahead. You can stand up and say hi to someone around you before Mo comes up to give our sermon.
Distraction above every doubt. You have my attention here right now. Love from the outset, yours from the start. You broke through the darkness to have my heart. I'm lost to the world, in you forever. In a love that never fades, in a hope that never sways. You'll never let go. This love is wild, wild. You got me reaching for the sky. Now I'm spinning over why you'll never let go. This love is wild, wild. This love is wild, wild. This love is wild, wild. We're breaking the silence with heavenly sound, louder than thunder, shaking the ground. If fear comes to find me, I will be found. Here in your presence, your freedom is now. I'm lost to the world.
Well, good morning. You guys can go ahead and grab your seat. Like Danica said, my name is Mo. My real name is Matt Olszewski, but most people call me Mo. I am one of the pastors here. You do not need to call me Pastor Matt. You can call me Mo. You can call me whatever. I'll respond. But Danica, speech was the right word for this morning, and you'll see here in a little bit. So if you've been with us the first 3 weeks, or at least the past 2 weeks, you know that we are in the middle of a series called Follow Me. And this series is all about what it looks like to be known by God, to have an intimate relationship with God. And the passage that we've been using for that is kind of like the theme for our whole series, and we're going to revisit it every once in a while, is the Matthew 11 passage that you have in your handout. The Matthew 11 passage. And so we're using that as kind of our framework and our structure for how we're viewing what it looks like when Jesus says, follow me. Because when Jesus invites us, because that's what he's doing, he's inviting us into a relationship with him. And so that is how we're going to continue in our series. Tom talked last week about how it is our purpose for being created, our purpose for when the world was absolutely nothing. I'm not going to use the Hebrew word that Tom used last week because I don't remember it, but when there was nothing in this world, God created everything, and he created us. And Tom reminded us that it was good when God created us. That means it was very good when God created us. We are his highest, most loved creation. That is what it's to be known by God. That's what it means. And so I want to revisit the first part of that Matthew 11 passage that we talked about in the very first week. And the reason we have it in there in our handout every week is we want you to revisit it throughout the week. We want you to read the words. We want you to reflect on the words, because the invitation, the words that Jesus used were so powerful. And even in the past few weeks, I've been reflecting on, and really in that point of reflecting, it's given me the opportunity to memorize, for it to just, I can recite it whenever I want to. And so I've been reflecting through the first part of Matthew 11, where Jesus says, are you tired? Are you worn out? Are you burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me. And you'll recover your life. You'll recover your life. And so this week, that's where I want to go, in that last part where Jesus says, you'll recover your life. I want to talk about life. And if we're going to talk about life, we also have to talk about the opposite of what life is, which is what? Death. If we're going to talk about life, we have to talk about death. And now I want to be really sensitive here, because I know that there are people in this room this morning where you have literally experienced and gone through a life and death situation. Whether that's personally, or maybe it was a close call, where like you saw or were in a situation where you literally could have died. Or maybe you were in a situation where you've had friends that have experienced that, where you've lost friends in high school. Maybe you've lost a family member, a brother, a sister, a parent, a grandparent. Like, we've all kind of had these situations to varying degrees where we've been face to face with life and death. And I remember it was just when we moved to Toledo here to start H2O Toledo. And we went out to this place called Maumee Bay State Park, which, if any of you have not been there, you should definitely go. I have a terrible experience that I'm about to share with you from there. But we were swimming with our kids. And there's this like little shallow inlet of water where my oldest son at the time, he was probably 6. My daughter was 3. And then we had pretty much a newborn, almost 1-year-old. My wife is on the shore with our 1-year-old in a little tent, just kind of hanging out. It was a very sunny day. I'm in the water with my oldest son, who's 6, and my daughter, who is 3. The water probably comes up to me about here, just above my knees. So I'm hanging out, having fun with my kids. All of a sudden, I kind of lose sight of my daughter, which should have clued me in, looked for her, but instead I assumed that she went back to be with my wife. I assumed very, very wrong because I looked at Gretchen a couple times and she looked at me and she says, "Where's Claire?" And my heart just like sank. I hate thinking about this memory because it was so terrifying to think that I had a daughter that I didn't know where she was. And I immediately started like looking around. I didn't see her. Gretchen goes to the lifeguard. People are clearing the water, and I am frantically like scooping water around me and thinking, where is my daughter? Where is she? It was horrifying. And I know that some of you have been through real life experiences where you've actually lost someone, and in that moment I thought my daughter was gone. Thankfully, she had just walked up shore, didn't know where Gretchen was, and she had walked like 50 yards down the beach, and someone noticed her that was sitting near us. I remember in that moment just feeling so lost, like life was gone. I thought my daughter's life was no more. So frightening. And so we know that life and death is a very serious thing, and it's easy for us to wrap our minds around physical death, right? That's why when I share that story, I get so emotional, because physically, to think that my daughter could have been gone in a second, that's more real to us when we think about physical death. And that's why we always talk about it with such a seriousness, that when we know that someone can be here one moment and gone in another, there's a seriousness, there's a weight to that conversation. But what if life and death was more than just physical? What if there's a spiritual element to life and death, and that we should actually take more seriously than our own very physical death? That we should believe that there's a very real reality, truth, to that there is a spiritual component to life and death. And that's the kind of life and death we're going to be talking about this morning. And we're going to start out our time about 1,500 years before the life of Jesus. And this is probably one of my favorite sections of the whole Bible. I've imagined this scene in my head so many times, because to me it plays out like one of those epic movie scenes, right? Like we all have those movies that we have seen and we've watched over and over again, and there comes a point in the time where in a movie where we hear the character say the most powerful words in the most powerful moment in the most powerful ways, and it just grips us, right? And I want to show you a movie clip so bad this morning, but I'm going to resist that temptation. Because we all have those movies. We all are even thinking of maybe a movie that we know that has this moment that you're just like, that was awesome, right? It's such a turning point to the movie. And so this is what this moment for me is like in the story that we're going to read. And the star of this scene is Moses, okay? The Moses, right? And if you don't really know much about Moses, I'm going to give you a lot of backstory. I'm going to give you a lot of the story leading up to the scene that we're going to read. So it's going to take a little bit of time for us to even just get to the words that Moses speaks that are so powerful, okay? So here's Moses. He's in his younger years, and he's really scared to do anything for God. Like, he is so frightened. God asks him to do something really critical for him, and Moses is like, you got the wrong dude. Like, I can't do this. I can't speak. If you want me to speak and do the things that you're telling me to do, I'm the wrong guy. I will trip over my words will get tangled up, and I'm going to sound so stupid. I am not your guy. But eventually, when we get to the scene that I'm going to read to you, Moses is a completely different guy. The words that he uses are so powerful. And in my opinion, it's probably one of the most epic speeches, probably in all of human history, when you know the power of the words. But before this moment, a lot took place in Moses' life. Okay, so Moses, at one point, he lived in Egypt. Okay, He was a Jewish, Hebrew, Israelite. If I use any of those words, they're just interchangeable. They all kind of mean the same thing. He was a Jewish, Hebrew, Israelite child when he was basically adopted by Egyptian royalty. Okay, so he's living most of his life in Egyptian royalty, but he's still a Jewish, Hebrew, Israelite. So Hebrews back then, they were slaves in Egypt. They did back-breaking work. If you look at a lot of the pyramids that you see in Egypt today, it's most likely that the Jewish people made those because they were slaves in Egypt and they made them build for long days at a time. So one day, Moses sees an Egyptian beating up a Hebrew man. And this puts him into an absolute rage, and he murders this Egyptian. And he tries to keep it quiet, but someone finds out, and it gets back to Pharaoh, the king of Egypt at that time, and Moses flees Egypt. He leaves Egypt, and he runs away for a long time. Some say for about 40 years. He's out of Egypt. He's away from his people who are enslaved. But God comes to Moses, and he speaks to him in miraculous ways. Moses is just walking around. He sees this bush just inflamed. He thinks, that's curious. He goes over to it and sees that it's not actually burning up or getting smaller. And God's voice comes out of this bush and speaks to Moses and says, I need you to go back to Egypt and rescue my people. I need you to get them out of slavery. And this is where Moses says, you got the wrong guy. I'm going to sound so dumb. I don't know the words to say. I'm going to sound like an idiot. Well, eventually, Moses says, okay, I'll go do it. God helps him rescue his people out of slavery. A lot of miraculous events happen. But what happens in the end is that they end up wandering in the desert for like 40 years. And when I talk about he rescued the Israelite people, some people would say that that was close to 1 million people at that time. So this is not a small group of people. They're wandering around the desert outside of Egypt. They're free, but they're constantly having to put up tents, break down tents, move to a new location. They also have cattle with them. There is a massive amount of people and resources and responsibilities, and Moses is in charge of leading all of this, all of it. And then throughout these 40 years, a lot happened during that time. Moses is used by God to give this huge group of people some new laws to help them conduct their life out in the wilderness as they're just walking around. And these laws forever, from then on, were called the Law of Moses, right? He gave the laws, and everybody at that point knew these are the laws of Moses. And so also during this time, they win battles, they lose battles. The story goes up and down, left and right, all over the place. And Moses is leading them through all of it. Which leads us up to the point where we're almost ready to get to the famous speech that he gives. But there's a little bit more context I need you guys to know. So if you read the whole book of Deuteronomy, where this speech takes place, the whole thing is one gigantic speech from Moses, okay? The guy who was afraid to talk. He's giving like this huge, long speech to all the Israelite people. And so the Israelites, they're camping out right outside the border of a land that God had promised the Israelites that he would give them. It's called Canaan. And this land was amazing. And I want to show you a picture of, this is modern day Israel, okay? So this is probably something similar to what the Israelites looked at. It was open land. It was surrounded by mountains. It had tons of space, beautiful farmlands, and the biggest draw that seemed that everybody got so excited about, we're not going to be excited about, but the biggest draw that this land had going for it was that it flowed with milk and honey. I don't understand why that was super exciting to them, but they loved it, okay? It was flowing with milk and honey. But here's the one big problem. God told Moses that he would never step foot in this land. We could see it from the mountains on the other side. We could see how amazing it was going to be. But God said, you are going to die. You're never going to step foot in this place. So in essence, the effect of the speech that Moses is about to give, the setting is that Moses knows he's going to die and he will no longer be leading these people on God's behalf. And this is his last opportunity to kind of share his main message. This is what I want you guys to remember. This is when you go into this land, if you remember these things, it's going to be so crucial. This is what I want. And so throughout the book of Deuteronomy, he does these things. He reminds them of stories of where God remained faithful to them. He just goes story after story. Hey, remember this? Remember this time when God stepped in and rescued you? He did this over and over again. And then he also recites many of the laws that he had given to them previously. He was just giving it to them again, which Deuteronomy literally means second law or copy of the law. He was just repeating it again to them. And so Moses is reminding them to follow these laws because these are not laws to restrict them. These are laws to show them what love is like. These laws are to show how God is going to protect them. That's what these laws were all about. And so these laws were given by God so that they would know how life works best. That's all Moses wanted to do, was give these laws that God gave him so that Israelites would know how life works best. And that's how all laws should be established, right? When we think about the laws that are passed today, they should be used to protect people. They should be used to show that people have dignity and honor and value, and laws should be passed to know that you are protecting certain groups of people. That's why laws are given. And so even if some of the laws, if you're to go back and you're to read some of Moses' laws, even if they are hard to understand and they don't make sense, and some of them honestly are hilarious, they're really funny to read, if you read them and you don't understand why God gave them, it's okay. It was most likely to protect them, to love them, and to honor them. So everything is leading up to this moment. He's reminding them of God's faithfulness. He's dying, and he's reminding them to make sure that they follow the law. Follow God's perfect and loving laws. So then this is what he says when we finally get to this speech. I think this is amazing. This is what he says. This command I am giving you today is not too difficult for you, and it is not beyond your reach. It is not kept in heaven so distant that you must ask, who will go up to heaven and bring it down so we can hear it and obey? It is not kept beyond the sea so far away that you must ask, who will cross the sea to bring it to us so we can hear it and obey? No, the message is very close at hand. It is on your lips and on your heart so that you can obey it. Now listen, today I am giving you a choice between life and death, prosperity and disaster. For I command you this day to love the Lord your God and to keep his commands, decrees, and regulations by walking in his ways. If you do this, you will live and multiply, and the Lord your God will bless you in the land you are about to enter and occupy. I hope you caught the power of that message. Moses has put before this whole nation millions of people. He put them before them the choice between life and death. Right? Life and death. Ask them, do you want to live or do you want to die? Right? We all have hard choices in life to make. I understand how hard life can be to make choices. But this choice here seems a little bit different, right? This is not like choosing between multiple puppies, right? This is not the same as choosing a burger at Red Robin, right? I love Red Robin. They have so many good burgers, and sometimes it's hard to make a choice. This even is not as difficult as picking what college to go to. right? If you were choosing between two different schools that had the same major that you wanted, I don't want to burst your bubble. It probably wouldn't have mattered, although I believe you made the right choice to be here at the University of Toledo, okay? I solely believe that, all right? You made the right choice. But didn't that seem like a monumental decision? Didn't that seem like if I screw this up, this could have a ripple effect beyond repair? Like I'm sure some of us felt that way. I did not feel that way. I got into one college when I was in high school, so the choice was very easy, right? Okay? But that decision seemed very monumental. But right here, Moses is putting before his people, choose life or death. Because then this is what Moses says to close out the scene. Here's how he ends this. He says, "This day I call the heavens and the earth as witnesses against you that I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Now choose life so that you and your children may live and that you may love the Lord your God. Listen to his voice and hold fast to him, for the Lord is your life, and he will give you many years in the land he swore to give to your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." Now let me ask you, if someone put before you and said, "I'm giving you a choice between life and death," what would you choose? You would choose life, right? It would seem ridiculous to choose death. Here, Moses puts before his people, there is a way that will enter you into life. There is a way that will enter you into death. Listen to my message. I am begging you, choose life. And I think this is so important to us. Even though these words were given 1,500 years before Jesus, these words still speak to us today. They still speak to us today because Jesus, 1,500 years later, gave almost the exact same words. He just posed the question, posed the dilemma, posed the problem in a different way. He just used different words. And so I want you to listen to these words that Jesus says in John chapter 5. He says, "I tell you the truth. Those who listen to my message and believe in God who sent me have eternal life. They will never be condemned for their sins, but they have already passed from death into life." Right? Jesus here is saying the exact same thing. He's putting before the people of this time, he's putting the choice between, or for us, before us, the choice of death and life. He's saying, "I am life. Choose me." And I remember being faced with this decision when I was about your age. I was in high school, and up to that point, I would say my life was all about maximizing pleasure, right? So it was all about where are we going to drink? How are we going to get the alcohol? And when is the best possibility to do this? Like, it was every weekend. Those are the questions that I was asking myself. It was maximizing my happiness. It was all about, and then it was also all about chasing the applause, chasing success. Will people take notice of me if I'm good at sports? Will people take notice of me if I'm in the spotlight? These are the things that I lived for. These are the things that I wanted. And life was all about me. What did I want? What could I do? Where could I go? How does this benefit me? And I admit, this was a point in my life that there were certain parts that were a lot of fun. That I had a lot of fun doing these things. And some of these things weren't necessarily unhealthy. To achieve for success and to achieve for people to like you, those aren't necessarily bad things, but that was my identity. I lived for those things. And if I didn't have those things, that felt like death to me. That was what my life was like. So even though parts of my life I really loved, there were also parts where I was just like, is this it? Like, is this how life is supposed to be? Like, I just kind of felt that emptiness. And I'm not trying to be cliche. I'm not trying to like go down this very general, obvious route of, okay, this is what the pastor needs to say, that our life is meaningless. No, this is what I experienced. And I think what people in general in life, this is what we experience every day. Often, where life does not live up to what everybody sells it's supposed to be. And so it was around this time, I didn't grow up going to church, but it was around this time I started going to this group. It wasn't part of a church, but it was something that became really popular to do in my high school. And so I started going. And they would share stories about Jesus, stories that I had never heard in my entire life. And again, I started going because it was the popular thing to do. My friends would go, people that I thought were cool. And so my motivation here was not to like hear stories about Jesus because I thought Jesus was the one that I needed to hear about. I went because my motivation was, well, the cool people are going, I'm going to go. Okay, that was my motivation. And so I would go back week after week and I would hear the message of Jesus. Remember what John just told us? He told us that it's all about those who hear my message. So I would go back week after week and I would hear the message of Jesus, hear stories about who he was. And I was blown away by everything that Jesus did and said. And leading up to kind of like the final moments of this, I started to understand how Jesus could change my life. How my life had really been defined by death. Things that didn't matter up to that point. And Jesus was asking me to live a life where I was with him, to experience true life. And so I heard about Jesus dying on the cross so I would not be condemned for my sin. That was another part of the passage that John just told us, that we hear the message of Jesus. We believe that God sent him for the purposes of coming to this earth to die for our sin. And then we hear about how he rose from the dead to live, which is his proof of showing who else could do this. Who else in human history has risen themselves from dead and proved that he is God, to prove that he has the authority to take sin of the world away. And my youngest son and I were talking through this earlier this week. He's 10 and he likes to think through these things. He asks really good questions or he makes statements just to help me know that he's processing some of the information. And so I don't really remember the context of how this conversation started. So this first thing that I'm telling you that he said, this is not how the conversation started. It would be a weird way to start a conversation. I just could not remember how the conversation started, okay? So he said, Dad, I could die for you just like Jesus did. That'd be a weird way to start a conversation, right? Okay, that's not how it started. Dad, I could die for you just like Jesus did. So I responded with the question, well, what would be the difference between you and Jesus? He said, well, I can't die to forgive your sin. I said, exactly. You could die for me, though. But all you have done is saved my life here on earth. I get to still live here, but also you're still dead, right? This is a great father-son conversation, right? These are the ones I always dreamed of, right? But I said, but you're also still dead. But Jesus died not only for me to experience life here and now, but Jesus raised from the dead. He's still alive. He's still a God that I can know, that I can have a personal relationship with. That is the difference between you and Jesus, my son. That is the difference. So he died so I would not be condemned for my sin, and he rose from the dead to prove he is not a dead God who is no longer useful. He lives, we can know him. That is the message that changed my life. For a kid that did not grow up going to church, to hear what true life to what real life is all about, radically shook my life up. I want to read Jesus' words to you again, because I want you to hear about the opportunity, the invitation for us to choose life. He says, I tell you the truth. Those who listen to my message and believe in God who sent me have eternal life. They will never be condemned for their sins, but they have already passed from death into life. This is what we want to see on this campus. This is what we want to see happen for every single person that steps foot in an H2O service. To know that Jesus is the true source of life. He's not like some secret to life. He is the actual source of life. That is what we want every single person to know. Because when we finally make that choice, when we choose life, our life radically changes. It becomes dramatically different. Because when you know the difference between what death and life is, others start to see it. Others start to know it through you. So when Jesus says, follow me, and that's what this whole series is about. When he says, follow me, he's saying, follow me into new life, something that's different than the life you were previously living. He says, follow me into a better life. Jesus' ways are better, sometimes harder, but better. He says, follow me into a grace-filled life, meaning just as I've forgiven you for your sin, I want you to go out and forgive others of the sins that they've committed against you. Show grace and show mercy. He says, follow me into a sacrificial life, because your life now is about keeping your eyes open, ready to serve others. You can't help everybody, but when your eyes are open, you start to see more opportunities of people that are hurting and in need to know and experience who Jesus is, the life that he offers. So this is life. And so I ask you the same question that Moses asked his people thousands of years ago. Choose life. Choose life. And that's what we're going to do this morning. We're going to do something this morning that represents the life that Jesus made possible for us. We're going to take communion, and there's juice over here that represents Jesus' blood from him dying on the cross. The blood that spilled out for our sin, for the consequences that we deserve. And then there's also bread there that represents Jesus' body being broken. Again, for the punishment that we deserve. We deserved physical death. We deserved spiritual death. Jesus came to give us the opportunity to actually choose life, to cross over from death to life. And so we're going to take communion, and we're going to have the band come on up, and you guys can start making your way up here. And here's how communion is going to work this morning, just because we're a little crowded. Sarah, who's over here, she's going to have each row come one at a time. And I want you to just go up to the table and remind yourself that when you take the bread, when you take the juice, just in your head saying, I'm choosing life. I'm choosing life with Jesus because of his love for me, for the way that he sacrificed for me. So you can take it back to your seat, and you can take communion whenever you would like throughout these next few songs that we're going to sing. If you're gluten-free, we do have crackers all the way in the back of that table if you need gluten-free. But really take the opportunity for this time to be a moment between you and God. Worship with him, thanking him for the life that he's made possible. Let me pray. God, thank you, God, that you made the possibility to choose life. God, that since the beginning of time, that has been the invitation you've been offering us over and over again. God, I thank you for the words of Moses and the way that he stood in front of his people and said, I'm begging you to choose life. There's two possibilities, and one is far greater than the other. Choose life. I pray that we all stand here today and choose life as well. That we're reminded of the love that Jesus had for us, that he took his own life so that we may live. God, we thank you. We worship you. We just want to bring you honor this morning. Amen.
Just want to go back and read Deuteronomy 11 one more time. It says, "This command I am giving you today is not too difficult for you, and it is not beyond your reach. It is not kept in heaven, so distant that you must ask, who will go up to heaven and bring it down so we can hear it and obey it? It is not kept beyond the sea, so far away that you must ask, who will cross the sea to bring it to us so that we can hear it and obey it? No, the message is very close at hand, is on your lips and in your heart so that you can obey it." We'll read that last verse again. No, the message is very close at hand. It is on your lips and in your heart so you can obey it. And this next song that we're going to sing, it begins, man, God, I love you so much. Wherever you are, I'm going to find you. I will cross whatever river, whatever mountain I have to climb, whatever valley I have to draw myself into, I will find you. But it ends by saying, you're just not that hard to find. I will do all these things to find you. You're just not that hard to find. And then during the chorus, it's just proclaiming, God, it doesn't matter if I'm on a mountain, it doesn't matter if I'm in a valley, I'm going to praise you. I'm not looking for you. You're already there. And we're talking about the Israelites being in all these stories, their highs and lows. the one thing that's consistent is the faithfulness of God. It doesn't change. The thing that does change is our faithfulness to God. And that's something to praise God about, something to worship. Man, God, you are faithful to me even when I'm not. Even when I am disobedient, you are just so, so faithful. So let's stand up and let's worship. Oh, how high would I climb mountains if the mountains were where you hide? And oh, how far I'd scale the valleys if you grace the other side. And oh, how long have I chased rivers from lowly seas to where they rise against the rush of grace descending from the source of its supply. 'Cause in the highlands and the heartache, you're neither more or less inclined. I would search and stop at nothing. You're just not that hard to find. So I will praise you on the mountains, and I will praise you in the mountains in my way. You're the summit where my feet are. So I will praise you in the valleys all the same. No less God within the shadows, no less faithful when the night leads me astray. You're the heaven where my heart is. In the highlands and the heartache all the same. Whoa, whoa. Oh, how far beneath your glory does your kindness extend the path from where your feet rest on the sunrise to where you sweep the sinner's path. And oh, how fast would you come running if just a shadow through the night trace my steps through all my failures and walk me out the other side. Who could dare ascend that mountain, that valleyed hill called Calvary? But for the one I call Good Shepherd, who like a lamb was slain for me. So I will praise you on the mountains, and I will praise you in the mountains in my way. You're the summit where my feet are. So I will praise you in the valleys all the same. No less God within the shadows, no less faithful when the night leads me astray. You're the heaven where my heart is. In the highlands and the heartache all the same. Whoa, whoa. Wherever I walk, my song of ascent. Whoa, whoa, my song of ascent. Whoa, whoa, from the greatest of all valleys come the pastures we call grace, a mighty river flowing upwards from a deep but empty grave. So I will praise you on the mountains, I will praise you.
you in the mountains in my way, for the summit where I will praise you in the valleys all the same.
No less God within the shadows, no less faithful in the night gives me your strength. You're the heaven where my heart is. In the highlands
And the heartache all the same.
I want to know you, Lord, like I know a friend. I want to know you, Lord. I want to know you, Lord, like I know a friend. I want to know you, Lord. So I'm laying down all my religion. I'm laying down,
Wanna know you,
Lord. I'm laying down
all my religion.
I'm laying down,
I wanna know you,
Lord.
know you, Lord.
I used to think I could box you in, but I'm laying down.
Wanna know you,
Lord. I used to think I could box you in, but I'm laying down. I wanna know you, Lord. I wanna know you, Lord. So I'm laying down all my religion. I'm laying down. Wanna know you, Lord. I'm laying down all of my religion. I'm laying down. I wanna know you, Lord. I wanna know you, Lord. Lord, I've been told to be ashamed. Lord, I've been told don't measure up. Lord, I've been told not good enough. But you're here with me. And I reach out and you find me in the dust. And said no amount of our truths can separate us. said no amount of all the truths can separate us. I will rejoice. I will rejoice in the simple gospel. I will rejoice in you, Lord. I will rejoice in the simple gospel. I will rejoice in you, Lord. And I reach out and you find me in the dust. And you said no amount of all the truth can separate us. I will rejoice. I will rejoice in the simple gospel. I will rejoice
In you, Lord,
I will rejoice
in the simple gospel. I will rejoice
in you, Lord.
Was amazing. That was so cool. Thank you all so much for coming today. I hope this was a great experience up here in Phoenicia today. Another reminder, we've got life groups throughout the week, and sign up for a fall retreat. We hope to see you next week. Thank you guys.